Hello, everybody. Thank you for coming tonight. Try and get started right on time. Respect your time frame. We're going to talk a lot about the project tonight. I'm going to turn it over to my expert to talk about the phasing of the project and the timing, and we'll talk about emergency services. We'll talk about trash and recycling pickup as this project progresses. It's going to be a great project when it's done, obviously, and there will be some pain during the project, and we're trying to cover everything, but as we evolve and as the project moves forward, I know there will be issues, and we certainly want you to call and let us know if you're having any specific concerns. Again, between trash and emergency services, I think we've got that covered, but the scheduling is never perfect. It can change. They can run into issues that anything underground, when you start trying to dig something up, you may find something that you didn't know was there, and that can delay the project. So we're going to try and stick to our schedule as best we can. We hope the weather cooperates as well. In just a moment, I'll have City Planner Jeremy Skinner talk about the project and talk about the different phases. But again, I very much appreciate you coming. I know we did this with our Husky Trail project, and it was very helpful to be able to talk about it, and if you have specific concerns, we've got an interactive map up here. We can find your property, and if you've got specific issues, after our little presentation, you guys can come up and we can look at what maybe your concerns are and try and address them in advance. So with that being said, I think we do have another representative from the construction company. Will be here at some point. I'm going to have Jeremy start and talk about the project, talk about the timeline. The project's going to be phased in 3 separate phases, so I think we're starting at near the railroad tracks and do a phase, and then the second phase, and then the third phase. So it won't all be closed at once, obviously. It'll be phased, and I'll let Jeremy get into the details of that. So again, thank you for coming. I don't know that we'll need a lot of your time tonight, but certainly here, as long as you need to answer any questions you might have. All right, Jeremy?
Thank you. So it feels like a long time coming. I know we've been talking about this project for a couple of years, but the day that is going to actually be constructed is finally here. So it's exciting, but at the same time, obviously, anytime you're dealing with construction, it's going to be challenging, but hopefully throughout this process, my office will always be open to you. Don't hesitate to email or call me if you have any issues throughout the time period. We'll have a construction inspector, Nikki Graham, on site. She is here tonight, so I want to introduce you all to Nikki Graham. She'll be working directly with the contractor on our behalf, the City of Warsaw. She's our representative through the INDOT contracting services. So anytime she's out there, she'll be overseeing the contractor, and you can always catch her to relay to me or catch me to relay to her any issues throughout the project. Like the mayor said, this will be 3 phases. The 3 phases are from Hickory Street to Tamarack, from Tamarack to Scott, and from Scott to Bronson. So those are the 3 phases. Each phase is roughly about 3 months. So the first phase will run from starting Monday to the 1st of May. The second phase would fall from 1st of May to about mid-July, and then July to October, when hopefully mid-October, when hopefully the project will be wrapping up. Those sections that are under construction as they go through the phases will be closed to local traffic only. Now, the intent for local traffic only is you will always have access to your property throughout the phases. But if you're in the phase that's under construction, you'll have access through that local traffic only. If you're not in that phase, then you would be like anybody else traveling through the area, so you would have to go around the barricaded section. The intent is to keep it safe for the contractors as well as those who live in that area, because the road's going to be torn up, because there's going to be concrete curb work, storm work, sidewalk work, decorative lights, all of that. To keep everyone safe, it's best if we acknowledge those signs and stay out of the construction area if you don't live directly within that area. The intent right now is to have that area barricaded off on both ends, so it would be barricaded up by Hickory Street, and would be barricaded by Tamarack. So if you're looking at this, You're gonna see there'll be double barricades up by Hickory, and there'll be double barricades by Tamarack. Anybody living or owning a business within that area will be able to have access through that area for now. Much like Husky Trail, we're gonna leave, right now the intent is to have the double barricades. If they fail to work, then we'll have to barricade both ends off, and we'll have one ingress and egress point. My preference is not to do that, but if we can't keep people out of the construction area, then we will barricade it off. And then you'll have a controlled entrance point, much like what we did on Husky Trail. Right now, the plans that have been set and the plans that NDOT has in place and the barricades that'll be here, there'll be staggered barricades on both ends, so local traffic will have access through that construction area. So as they're building that, the bulk of the work will be new curbs, new sidewalks. The road will be milled. We are not, at this point, we're hoping to not have to have any full reconstruction of any areas, but obviously that's really dependent on once we get underneath, once we start milling out that asphalt. If there's any bad areas, there may be some full removal. But for the most part, what we're doing is just milling down the existing road. So as long as we don't have to undermine any of that, there'll be a pretty decent driving surface for most of the area. Coming in and out of the properties, because we are widening some sections of the road, there'll be some gravel that will be thrown in, but for the most part, the access throughout should be fairly decent as long as we don't have any major issues with the substructure of the road. Each section is the same way, so once we'd get done with phase one, we'd move on to phase two. So phase two, barricades would be just past Tamarack and just in front of, make sure this is phase two. So phase two, well, now we're on phase three, come on. All right, phase two, barricaded just past Tamarack and barricaded in front of Scott Street. So it'll basically be closed from Scott to Tamarack. Phase three would be barricaded at Scott Street all the way to Bronson. So you have barricades just past Scott Street and then barricaded in front of Bronson Street. So those are the three phases. Like I said, really we're just here to answer any questions, any concerns. Throughout construction, there will be someone on site, whether it be Nikki or myself or the city engineer, will always be out and about. Don't hesitate to call. As we get to constructing the actual driveways, there will be some work with the property owners, because obviously we can't pour concrete and allow you to have access to your driveway at the same time. Depending on the size of your driveway, they may be able to pour half of it. So you would have access to half of it and then pour the other half. If the size is too small, they'll pour it all in one pour. And there'll be about a 48 to 72 hour period in which you wouldn't have access to your driveway. We'll work with you to make sure you have on-street parking or parking in the alley. If you have back access, we would request that you use the alley access. If you don't have any driveway and you have on-street parking, we'll work to have some parking along the cross streets for those individuals as well. So we'll try to work with everybody throughout the project. The biggest issue or concern for me is just making sure you communicate any issues you have to me so that we can address any issues as we go throughout the construction. It's going to be a challenge. The end result will be great, but it's going to take a little bit of time to get there, and hopefully from beginning of March, if we have decent weather, by the time October rolls around, we'll be wrapping this up. The intent will be everything will be done within each phase except for the asphalt and the paint. So the top coat, it's best to put that all on in one run. So when they do the phases, they'll come back and do the top coat all in one run and do the paint in one run rather than trying to do the top coat and the paint in phases. So when you're done with phase 1, 2, and 3, they'll come back. There'll be temporary road closures as they put the final top coat down on the entire stretch. But most of the time that will occur within a day or two. So it's not going to be a long period of closure. Within a day, they'll have most of it done, and they'll come back and they'll paint within a day. So most of it will happen pretty quickly at the end. It's just getting to that point where they can put the final coat down. So if there's any questions, certainly I'll take it. I don't know if Andy Brown, Fenton Brown is the contractor on this project. Andy Brown will be overseeing the project. He said he might be here tonight if he gets a chance. But certainly if there's any questions for myself or for Nikki, who will be on the project, now would be the time to ask him.
Jeremy, would you give the dates, tentative dates for each phase of that project, so folks know approximately the intention of when that will start?
So right now, March 11th, Monday, will be the first day for phase 1, and it'll run until May 1st, roughly. That's obviously weather permitting, because we're going to get rain. Spring will be the big test, depending on how far we can get. If they can keep moving the entire time, we'll stay on schedule. A lot of times, once you get into June through July, you pick up some speed, because after spring, the rain subsides, so you have less rain days in June through July, so they'll pick up some speed. So depending, right now, tentatively, phase 1 is to be done May 1st, but we all know what happens in the spring. So if there's any delay, that may push phase 2 back. I would expect phase 2 will go faster if we don't have, once spring's over and we don't have the rain, so you might see some change between phase 1 and 2 and then phase 2 and 3 timing wise. But for now, May 1st would be the completion of phase 1. It would also be the start of phase 2. Phase 2 runs through the second week of July, and then starting phase 3 that second week in July to the mid of October is what the schedule is saying, or what we're shooting for. But I can guarantee you there's going to be rain, there's going to be weather delays. A lot of that might happen in the first phase, so that first phase may extend a little bit longer, and then hopefully we can pick up some speed on phase 2 and 3.
Jeremy, would you talk a little bit, I know in the first phase, each driveway and sidewalk had sometimes a little different challenge tying in the project to the existing driveways. Any thoughts on that for residents?
Most of the driveways in this project have accounted for that. There were some there were some properties that we may have obtained temporary right-of-way on. Some of you may have been those properties that we have temporary right-of-way, and the purpose of that was to make sure we get the grading between the sidewalk and the road in your driveway correct. So there are about 10 properties that we have temporary right-of-way that will go back further on the property to make sure that those driveway grades, if we did not acquire temporary right-of-way from you, then it'll just be your grade, your driveway work will just occur within the right-of-way. If we've obtained temporary right-of-way from you, there will be some of those areas where we'll go a little bit further back on your property to address any of those grade issues. All of these are concrete, so all the driveway aprons will be placed back in concrete.
I'd like Terry from the street department to come up and talk about what you can expect with trash and recycling during your phasing. Terry?
Good evening. After looking at the map, going over everything with Jeff, most of the properties on the south side of Market Street, there's a lot of them that do not have alleys, so we're still going to be picking your trash up curbside. So there's no need to take it to the alley. If by chance are times when we cannot service you on the street, or if we see an issue, we will be putting these on your front door to notify you if there's going to be a change in the trash pickup. And it would only be a 24-hour notice that we would give you, and it would just be for the one-time deal. But other than that, they're going to continue picking up curbside if the guys need to. They will be walking down to pick up the cans and put them back.
And that's recycle as well.
Recycling and trash pickup.
Any questions? Right, thanks, Spirit.
I'm sorry, the north side of the street, I missed that, you mentioned that.
Okay, north side, since we're going to have to be driving on Market Street through the whole process, we'll go ahead and just continue picking up north side on curbside too.
Yeah, the nice thing with this project is, as of now, knock on wood, this is an overlay project. There will be some widening from curb to the edge of pavement, but for the most part, there will be a drivable surface throughout. There are some pipe work so there'll be some cuts across the existing road bed, but for the most part, the road bed will be intact. What's under Market Street, most of it's concrete. There's about 6 inches or so of concrete. So unlike a full reconstruction project where you may have dirt or sub-base gravel at times to drive on, the intent or hope with this project is that there will be a hard surface to drive on at all times, assuming we don't have any major sub-base failures.
I wanted Chief Wilson to come up and talk about emergency services throughout the project. Chief?
We went through phase one with no incidents. One of the biggest things that happens on our side, and this is not just fire department, it's Lutheran EMS and Warsaw Police Department the same way. Well, you will see one of our staff vehicles, which is one of the red Tahoes, in your area during construction every morning. We go out, we survey the area so that our staff knows where they can and can't get the big red trucks. And then we give that information to Lutheran EMS. And since we run with Lutheran EMS on emergency calls, you will still have that same staffing. You'll still have a full engine crew and a full medical crew coming to you if you have an emergency. But we went through phase one and we didn't really have any issues at all because we pre-planned ahead of time. So, but if you see something and you're worried about it, if you're worried about a fire hydrant, if you give us a call, we'll come out, take a look at it. We'll make sure that we're going to be able to take care of your emergency. No problem at all.
Yeah, and the biggest thing we can ask from you and from the public in general, since this is being broadcasted, is just obey the signs. If you live in that area, use it cautiously. You'll have entrance on both ends through the double barricades. If you don't live in that area, go around, obey the detours. It's safe for the people that are living there, for you, safe for the community, and it's safe for the contractors who are going to be out here working.
I'm on the north side of Market Street. Once this is all said and done, what will I see outside my front door? What's changing? My tree lawn changing? Is where my sidewalk is changing?
A little bit, not drastically. One of the things that this project is doing is creating on-street parking on the south side. So if you've been down through phase one, it'll be a carbon copy of phase one. North side will have the standard 5-foot sidewalk. All the parking will be on the south side, so you'll have on-street parking on the south side. You'll have the decorative lights. You'll have the curb bump outs. And then you'll have the grass median strip in between the sidewalk where the decorative lights are at. So it'll be a carbon copy of what we've done on phase one. It'll look exactly like phase one in the end. The side path or the pedestrian path will be on the south side as it is in phase one. It connects both park areas and then eventually will feed into the downtown. So it'll be exactly like phase one.
So, like my landscaping outfit, is it coming that far?
If we did not pay you for landscaping, unless it's in our right-of-way, we shouldn't be disturbing it. And we'll look, we can come, if you come up after the meeting, we'll take a look at it. But wherever that back side, do you have sidewalk out there now?
Yeah.
Wherever that back sidewalk, we're not acquiring any additional right-of-way. The only right-of-way we acquired was temporary right-of-way for the driveways to make sure that they drained back to get that grading right between the sidewalk and the road. We're not going beyond our existing right-of-way. So typically with the existing right-of-way, it's probably on that back side of that sidewalk. For the most part, that'll be, if you have sidewalk, that'll be about as far as we go. There might be a foot or so for us tearing out the sidewalk, but we wouldn't go much beyond that.
The south side, there's going to have like,
Yes, there will be decorative streetlights throughout the project, much like phase one. We are going to look at it after the entire project's done. And we've done different tree programs, so we'll probably have a public meeting and invite people to discuss what they would like to see. On the west, which we did years ago, on the west side of Market Street, we did a bunch of decorative trees, so they were like your pear trees, your flowering crab apples, your dogwood trees. So we planted a lot of those along the west phase of Market Street years ago. We could do something similar to that. Other things we've done is if you lost a tree, we would replace that tree and you could put it on your property wherever you would want. So there's different programs we've done with trees, and certainly we'll look at what makes sense here and have public input so that we can have a nice street in the end.
In this first phase, to follow up on conversation you and I had about safety of parking and where the residents are as opposed to the shopping center, and having the parking on the south side when people are living on the north side, but also carrying through to a lot of pedestrian traffic crossing the street regularly for the football. Is there any additional safety kind of signage or way that can make crossing the street in that first phase a little safer? It's a very long stretch between stops and a long stretch for people to accelerate. And I'm concerned about a lot of pedestrian traffic trying to cross where there aren't any crossings.
So the project design, so when we talked a little bit about this, the intent of the project and the design of the project on phase 1 and phase 2 was twofold. One was for safety reasons, we're shrinking the road bed down and we're providing on-street parking in a safe manner, whereas right now there's not enough space for on-street parking, which means you have people swerving out. So the on-street parking will be protected on-street parking by the curb bump outs, and then the distance between the curb bump outs and where the crosswalks are at will be significantly shorter than where they are now. Right now, that section of Market Street is very wide, and to cross it is it's a long cross. When we're done, there'll only be 20-some feet between curb and curb. So the intent of the curb bump outs, the intent of shrinking that section of the street down is for pedestrian safety. So when they're crossing from now on, they'll only be crossing 20 feet rather than, I think, the 32 feet that they're crossing now. So a lot of the improvements with the curb bump outs, the shrunk driving lane, you only got 10-foot driving lanes, slow speed down, and then shrinking that crossing distance are all safety features that we've tried to design in. All along, the approach here has been Market Street as a residential neighborhood. We wanted to design the street as a residential neighborhood, not as a thoroughfare. That's not the intent of Market Street. That's why a lot of the features we have with the decorative lights, the shrinking down the roadway, the curb bump outs all help reduce traffic speed and increase that safety factor for pedestrians.
Will there be painted crosswalk?
There will be crosswalks, yep.
Thank you.
So I was on the south side, and I don't have a very big front yard. So if you're doing just like you did on the other side of Market and putting those like parks on First Street parking, it's probably gonna cut into my yard quite a bit, I think. So how does that work? Because I would, like, we haven't been contacted about anything otherwise, like you had said, so how does that work then if I haven't been contacted and I don't have a very big yard? I would think it would cut into it from looking at the other side of Market.
After we're done, you can come up and we'll look at your property and see what the impact might be.
Okay.
In general, we're not acquiring any right-of-way, so whatever right-of-way is there is the right-of-way we're working in. There will be some impacts, but to sit here and tell you exactly, I'd have to look at your property to see what the impact is, and we can do that afterwards. Yeah.
So, on the first and halfway down through the second phase, you're taking away all Front Street parking for the residents on the north side, sorry.
Yes.
Okay, so you're catering to the parking still is.
I don't believe there's any on-street parking on the north side.
717. So the park is directly across the street from us. We are directly across the pavilion. The pavilion of the park. So right now, we can park in front of our house, which we have teenage drivers and not enough, big enough driveway to accommodate. So we use the parking in front of our street. So I guess the question is, will there be cutouts across the street going into the park area? Where
Yes.
are we supposed to go?
Yeah, so there will be parking on the south side. All the parking will be on the south side. It was not, didn't have anything to do with catering to the park. It had to do with the lineup of the street and the ability to fit everything in. If you're swapping back and forth, north-south parking, then your road changes, because this would have to be flipped, and then at your intersections, you'd be doing a dog leg. So instead of being able to go straight through, that traffic would have to move. So the intent all along was to keep that flow of traffic straight, keep the pedestrians on the south side, keep the parking on the south side. I mean, that was the intent of the design.
So we have nowhere to go.
You still have parking, it's on the south side.
The park is there.
In the summer, there won't be any parking there. Because that's gonna go over into where they park now in the park, and then on that little side gravel road. So they're
What?
gonna fill all that up.
I wouldn't, I'm not discrediting that, but I would assume they would have equal opportunity to park on the north side as they would on the south side. I'm not entirely sure I'm following whether they're parking on the north side or the south side. On-street parking is public parking.
Well, we live on the north side, so we could park right in front of our house.
I understand.
Okay, so there's no more north side on-street parking.
Well, you would be parking on the south side in front of your house.
Okay, but in front of our house is the park.
But this is all public, this is all public parking. This is not designated for anybody. This is on-street public parking. I have, but I guess what I'm trying, I mean, maybe I'm misunderstanding you, but those people have the same opportunity to park on the north side now as they would on the south side. That doesn't change.
So, yeah, they don't.
They don't.
So right now, the park itself has parking. There is a parking
Yes.
for the football field, and there's parking in the park. Now, the park department closes that off during football games, so they have to park on the street. So for as long as I can remember, we've had north side parking from Scott Street, pretty much from the church down to the railroad track. So now you're gonna move all the homeowners across the street, so now we all have to cross the street back to our house we parked in front of for decades?
In that section, yes. Yeah. I mean, you have to look at it from our standpoint, whether, if we pushed it on the north side, then all the other people, I mean, this is just one section. If you go down through there, on the south side, there's parking on, there's only parking on the south side, so
The
parking,
park has parking itself.
but this is not park parking.
Well, there is, they have a lane there, they park in there.
I understand that, but this
So
is
what I'm
not.
saying, what I'm asking is, that section of park, is why can't there alleviate that traffic here? Why can't there be parking on both sides for that section? There's gonna be a parking issue come this fall. That's the point that we're trying to make.
The right-of-way section in here allows for one row of on-street parking. In order to have two rows, we would have to acquire another 8 feet all along that area.
Park that you own.
No. What I'm saying is, this is right-of-way to right-of-way, whether you're on north-south side, we would have had to acquire another 8 feet in order to have on-street parking on both sides of the street.
So I'm confused, is the parking already there?
Hmm?
The north side parking is already there.
But there's no south side parking. No, there's no parking on the south side.
There is no parking on the south side, you are correct. But you're taking that bump out, is it going into park property? Is that bump out going into park property?
This line right here is the right-of-way. Anything inside the line to line It's right away, it's not park property.
Is there a way they can make parking lot in the park for the football games?
Yeah, there's temporary parking, we're just trying to say there's.
No, I understand. I understand, and that's something we'll have to deal with them using the football. I mean, we can look at parking options for them. The on-street parking in this case, I understand what you're saying, but I have to look at it for the entire stretch. So I understand right now you have parking out in front of you, but if I go down 2 blocks, other people have parking in front of them. If I told them, oh, no, all your parking's moving to the north side, you don't have parking in front of you. So I get,
Parking issue isn't really that we're so much complaining because you gotta cross the street to park.
There are people that I'm worried about.
no, I understand.
We're worried about Tricia.
Yeah, no, and we've talked, I know we've talked about parking.
But, but the issue is gonna be, so, we're home, we live there.
Yes.
We need to park, we need to come and go from our residence.
Mhm.
Now, we're fans of the football program, not a problem, but it's gonna be a really bad situation when we're trying to come and go, and everybody who's a football parent or whatever is taking up every bit of parking, and we can't park there any longer. It's just gonna be, that's where our issue is coming from.
Understand. And that's probably something we need to talk to the Parks Department and the football program about, is addressing that issue long term.
Right.
Because short term, even, this is not a solution for them by any stretch. And this parking was not put in for them, this parking was put in for on-street parking residents. Yeah. So their parking issues is probably something we need to look at more long-term to see what options and opportunities there are for them.
Jeremy, a year ago, there was, this discussion came up, and we were told that there was discussions with the Parks Department about using the grounds east of the Fairleigh football field for parking. And as I understand, the Parks Department was looking at improving that to use it as a parking lot. That was the impression we were given. Are you saying that nothing has been done, or there's been no progress in creating a parking area there?
I'm saying that we do not have any plans to create a parking area at this point in time. Did we look at it? Will we continue to look at it? There are some properties available that we've talked to the Parks Department about. And even on the other side, I think there's some areas we had talked about as part of the Stellar program. We had talked about some parking lot improvements on the west side. Yes, we have had a lot of conversations. Do I have a magic idea at this point? I don't. We'll still have to figure out how to try to work with them and make the parking better during those time periods.
Okay, I'm going to jump up. This was another concern I have with the parking on the south side of the road. You have the entrance into the Dollar General and the dance studio and whatever the other business is there. Having parking on that side of the road, is that going to impede the vision of people entering or exiting that parking lot?
No. That's the benefit of the curb bump outs. It's going to actually push you out, away from the vehicles. It also, there's a reason for the separation, the distance separation is to give you better line of sight.
So that's of that parking lot. I didn't know if that was an intersection.
Yeah, if you go back to, this is Park, so this is their main entrance here, and if I go back a page, there's also a second bump out there with no parking here. So this slopes back down, but that bump out narrows and allows that.
And the last question I have was, I think that zoning ordinance requires that every lot, every tract that has a house on it has to have off-street parking.
Yes. Keep in mind, the zoning ordinance is for new construction. Depending on, I mean, you have houses that were built 100 years ago, they were not built under this ordinance. So there are a lot of older houses that don't. Does that mean that those property owners couldn't look at ways to have off-street parking? Yes, they could. Can we make them? No, I can't make them. I wish I could in some cases. I know we've had a discussion about parking and handicap spaces, and I'm willing to continue to talk and work with you on possible solutions, but I can't make anybody put parking spaces on a house that was built 100 years ago. If they were building a new house, I can make them put 2 parking spaces in.
If you're having handicap spots, then on the south side of the road across the street from the house, that's a safety issue.
No, and I'm not advocating, what we had talked about was if there was a possibility for and I believe your rent? You own, okay. The possibility of you putting a parking space on your property.
I'm not too concerned about us, we have back parking if we have to, but, that could be an issue in other cases.
Well, let's talk after the meeting. We'll see what possible solutions we can look at.
You and I also talked about working with property owners and the street department on some alley improvements that would make using the backs of those properties more attractive.
More attractive, yeah. Yeah, and I know that the street department has done a pavement plan for the entire city. I know that they are improving their ability to do some of those alley work themselves to reduce the cost on the city so that we can do more alley improvements. And certainly we'll reach out to the street department to see what potential improvements. I can't guarantee it's gonna be done tomorrow by any stretch of the imagination. Obviously, they have set budgets and they have road programs and projects that they run, especially when you're talking about an entire city. There's hundreds of miles of roads that they have to maintain. But certainly, we can talk to them about looking at those specific alleys in the future of what improvements can be done or made.
We have teenage drivers too, so, on the 900 block, is there any way to talk to the church staff when you're in our area? Is that something you could do?
Which church are we? I think they have some representatives here tonight, so certainly, yeah, I mean, we can have a conversation, you can have a conversation with them. Typically what we would do is address any specific issues with individuals throughout the project, so we'll look at whether or not we could set some off-street parking off to the side, or if there's some parking lots that maybe could be used during the week, we'll certainly have some conversations with those property owners to see how we can all work together.
I was concerned about the street lights. It seemed like the new phase is so bright, it's like a lurid light. Is there any way they can be toned down, the street lights, so they're just gonna be shining in our houses?
I haven't had any complaints of them shining in the houses, but I have had the complaint that it's a white light.
This isn't the first time this has come up.
No,
For this group.
yeah, no, I get it. It's a transition. They don't make high-pressure sodium bulbs anymore, which is that yellow, what people think, that yellow soft glow.
But on Park Street, they're nice and soft.
That's because they're high-pressure sodium, and you don't make them anymore. They don't make high-pressure sodium anymore. Obviously, with energy, the cost of energy, everything's going LED. And everything we put in is LED. For one, they use practically no energy. But,
Point downward,
well,
there's a dark skies element to this too.
we'll have a conversation with we'll have a conversation with the engineer, but
I think brighter lights are better security.
it's definitely, the thing is, the lumens are no different. From appearance sake, you say it's brighter, but in reality, it's more, it's your perception. The light lumens, if you were to look at a light lumen radius for that versus the high pressure sodium, it wouldn't be any different. It's just because it has that bright LED look, and you have the old yellow high pressure sodium, yellow or orange glow that the high pressure sodium lights have. But the lumens aren't any different than what a high pressure sodium is. It covers the same light candle foot area.
But where we live now, to the new side, the previous phase of Market Street, it is
Oh, absolutely. I mean, we're
No,
putting,
no, perception, it's really brighter there than it is where we live.
well, we're putting in streetlights, so yeah, it's definitely bright. It's gonna be brighter. I'm not disputing that. It'll be brighter along that corridor, yes. Because right now, I think you might have a few lights at some intersections, and this will be lights through the entire corridor.
That's for pedestrian and bicycle safety.
Pedestrian, bicycle, traffic safety, obviously, lighting intersections help for at night for pedestrians, for vehicles to see pedestrians, and vice versa for vehicles to see other vehicles and pedestrians. I mean, it's a safety. But the lights aren't tall lights. I mean, I think they're 18 foot, roughly, give or take. So it's more to provide some character, safety, and to make sure that they're decorative lights. They're just single globe. They're not tri-globes like what we have downtown. They're not big overhanging intersection lights like what you would see on an interstate. I mean, the intent is to keep it a residential neighborhood feel. Any other questions?
While you're on the subject of the lights, I noticed how close they are to the curving, and I see that several in the sections are already done, are down. Has there been any thought to moving them back? Or would that be something that might consider?
We did, it's probably not going to move back, but we are trying to figure out what the issue is there. I mean, we've had some cars that have taken out some light poles. In order to take out the light pole, they have to jump the curb, so I mean, it's not just some person driving and taking out, I mean, they're actually doing something, they're physically jumping the curb, which puts everybody at risk. But in general, there shouldn't be an issue as long as you stay on the road.
I live in that section, and I personally like the light.
Yeah.
It doesn't bother us in the house, although you see it coming through some of the higher windows and things. But
Yeah.
personally, we like it.
If there's any issues, if there's any issues, and on Husky Trail, we had the same, and we'll do the same thing here, as you're looking at the maps, as we're laying stuff out. I mean, I can move a light 5 feet, 10 feet. You know, if there's an issue, we can certainly take a look at it. In general, neither on Parker, neither on Husky, and not on Market Street have we had anybody come in after the fact and say, this is a problem. So I think for the most part, the lights, once they're in, when you're driving down the street, it'll be very nice, but I don't think it'll bother you inside your house. If there aren't any other questions, certainly feel free to come up here. We can talk about individual properties that were brought up. We can look at them, see what potential issues there might be, and address any concerns. But that's all I have. Thank you for coming out. Don't hesitate to call or contact my office if you have any questions or concerns throughout the project. That's what we're here for.
Now, I know that you guys love the right of way, you take care of that. Now, I have, these 2 areas, I'll have one out there on the side. Where are we, is parking going to be on this side, or part of it, is it doing the entire project? Well, I'm saying during the project. So will there be still parking on the street part while they're doing it, or will I have signs? So is this going to be an option to parking here? Because again, I mean, I don't know, I don't have anything in the back for this part. There's a fence all the way around, so there's no.
So, yeah, we have a look.
Like I said, I'm sure that it could probably keep two there, but the other two vehicles would be sold.
So, yeah, we would look to see.
Right. Now, do we know, I know this house here, just had a fun. Is there gonna be plans about tearing it down, or do we know what's going on with that? Because I didn't know if that would create more parking right here. Yeah. Right. And then I didn't know. Now, what about as far as like right along the railroad track? Would there be parking available? You could. Some access, right. Okay, so possibly here, right. Okay. Okay, no, but with this is gonna be just part of the time, but it would be the entire construction, or you would have to park it.
No, it would just be here to stay.
Right.
There'll be on-street parking, on-street.
Right.
There will be a couple of days where it's probably gonna be closed for parking, like it's just fine. Come back, we find there'll be a base code all day.
Now, is that gonna be enough then, right away, because I forget how this. But you just need the front part, so as long as I still had a car length. Okay. But I know that, that is one of my concerns. My concern was making it a little more level.
That was all that should be accounted for.
Right.
And the challenging will have is what we all this is going to be a
Right.
So there will be a time that's not
Okay.
the access not right here.
Okay.
And then we'll test it and all that.
Okay. Well, I just like, down with the snow.
Appreciate it. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Okay. So I guess I don't much else. You're still on it.
It's touchy. So, on this side of my driveway, I don't park on this side.
Well, yeah, how would I tell you?
Or we say you can park in the
Yeah, but that's why you do, so you can't.
One of the things I didn't want to do.
But it's just,
Because of these roads, we have to cross, our exits have been barricaded. So, what we have in a lot of cases, you don't have, as a work out, you'll be able to kind of park. It's gonna be barricaded off, so it's like, there shouldn't be city traffic, so parking out.
You're civically engaged in Lloyd. Sorry, dear. My not parking lot, when this is finished, I will. There's plenty of room in my yard.
There's a few properties in the town, I know y'all like, but what we're probably going to do.
Well, I mean, well, the airport is really needing exactly.
You know what, on mine, right here, right here, this sidewalk, for now, the sidewalk is flush with the road, it's bad shape, there's, the grass is terrible, my family, all parts of the sidewalk, drop off, they just all curve, oh, sorry, they curve there, there's room for two. There's room here for two, for two cars, back to back, and two cars back to back, and then there's also room there for cars.
I absolutely endorse
It doesn't sound like it's gonna be very hard. It sounds like a few times.
You're gonna have about 3 months where it's gonna be wet.
No, it's not gonna be miserable. It's gonna be, that's it. There's a barrier like right there, and then barriers I'm using back here.
As we go through these phases, we're gonna
Nice neighbors who are willing to let you. You know, I wonder what the solution for our services were. There's a lot and maybe there are sections that are especially if it's on the south side. It's even more clean. Well, then it is
moved everything to the north side, then all the people that are on the south side.
No, it's just that, those little, it just happens to be in that section. So you are putting a street light right there. Is there some sort of shield that can go on the back of the light, so the light is focused this way? This is the light fixture. Can it be shielded on the back?
And then they can't.
That's okay. And the scope of
Some cases.
This is really not.
I don't know, I'll have to look and see, it could be moved back, maybe it could be moved
Well, I think there's one here too.
I typically I'm trying to light the intersections, so it could be
I'd
diagonal.
rather not inconvenience the business. I'd rather it could still be. But I could also. I asked you, I have old sidewalk, and then I have new sidewalk, and there's my area. And I asked them to tie into the new sidewalk. She said next time she's.
No, I was just watching, I mean, everything. Here we have, in front of these projects, we have.
It shouldn't be an issue, our sidewalk, well, the improvements we're doing should be on the back side, roughly where the sidewalks are.
Sidewalk is in front, the other side is in front.
Is she having fun?
And then the sidewalk.
She's loving
No, this is the concrete right here. They got the grass.
We were down there.
And we have walkways currently, so here we don't have to walk the tree line.
Yep.
They were.
I'll let her know
My
you're
husband is always at our site park. And, after the sidewalks, in between the sidewalks.
Where we live in? What address is that?
Have any place to clear.
That's okay. You just got closer to your house. We're at 709.
I was worried about that rain because I was told.
You're on camera.
Well, I just look at it, it was just missing one side, it's just, I didn't have any operating up that way, so. But it's just are you doing away with my sidewalks where everybody walks from my property? Yeah. I mean, that's what you might bring up.
Because when I put the electrical pipeline, they had to it's against the mower anyway.
Do I need to, like, township, tell them all that works for the, you know, they're like, $1,000 a day. Well,
I had to hire them to have somebody come in and mow.
township meeting.
Because my mower is.
Into their, my parents had horrid problems with moles. We would actually like run tape or do mole dances and we squish them all down. But we put moles down in their burrows or whatever you want to call them. And
Yeah,
they're
right.
so mothballs. Try that out.
Well,
Yeah, so that solved it for them, so. And then they came back to home. Yeah, they did. It was terrible. Oh my. Yeah, try that, that worked for them, so.
I think that little concrete section is just that little strip before, but it shouldn't be any, shouldn't have anything to do with your ramp, it should be good.
Pipeline, they had my whole front yard tore up. They dug into the crawl space looking for the house next to me. And I had to
Sanitary lines stay where they're at. Water, we don't know, American Water Islands, they can there's a few hydrants.
But I just wanted to, because after tore up a few
I see what it is. Yeah, the 2-foot wide curve and then having a 6-foot like
That house.
roads right.
I was worried about that ramp, because I can't go up that. The ramp was put on my road. It's always been not that bad yet. Where the main question, the doctor told us that they may have.
All the way through, my bicycle she's connected to my company. But anyways, but everything that's not serious by the people using bicycles. But not really. But what I was talking about was telling them that this place is yes, yeah, I'm always just scared of the out of
Well, it sounds good. The other thing is, really, in front of our house is the only good portion of sidewalk on that section of Market Street. No, we're on the opposite side, yeah, this is the yellow one there. See, we have the only good portion of sidewalk actually on Market Street. But like, that's all we have. And so I was concerned with putting like, you know, like you said, the bump in and everything, is that gonna cut into our
I mean,
yard?
I've been.
I'm worried about it being too close to our door, we have a 1-year-old. And granted, she's not in the front yard very often or anything, but when she gets older and starts playing outside more, is my concern.
On the west wall, where Western
Did
Street.
they take the right of way in?
Yes.
Nope, I did with the stop.
Do you have any stakes out there?
What do you mean by stakes? Like actual?
She dropped the mic.
I don't believe it. Not that, I have like flags from like gas lines and stuff, but I don't think I have any stakes out there.
It might have
So yeah, it's like just like yellow flags, like yeah, like flags like that, you know, like this yellow one over here for like gas and stuff, but I mean, I don't think I've seen any, or at least I haven't noticed any on like actual like stakes or anything. But I was assuming because
Yeah, I
of
typically
how it is.
Typically, and I have
It was
those
East Kansas.
on the GIS, it's on
Made out so
Okay.
bad, I'm ready to ride home.
the GIS, it's looking like it's right up on top of your house.
Yeah, that's what I was concerned about because we're, you know, like I said, we don't have the front yard in our house is right out there.
Yes.
Right. I got my girls to pitch in and help me out and switch some chips and.
He did. He probably thought about taking off, but.
That happened once. I,
No.
had someplace to go, should have just dropped me off at Burger King, back in.
Yeah, give her a run or something. Sorry.
He thought I'm not sure if
They came and they're like, are you okay? Do you need us to call the police? And I was like, I'm fine, why? Well, he left you. I'm like, he's coming back.
Well, yeah, but at least you did.
Yeah.
So yeah, your gravel drive comes all the way up here.
Turn it around for him. So, yeah, see, cause our, yeah, that's all gravel right there. It's like, just like rock gravel for the driveway.
Yeah, so if I'm reading it right, you know, we're putting a here's what you still have gravel.
He's driving me nuts.
Okay, so you will be taking probably about half of that?
Well,
Because if you do, that's gonna take a good portion of our driveway, actually.
it looks like we're probably going to be pretty close to
Because
where that
see, 'cause
sidewalk's at.
this is the, dang it. Like, this is our driveway right here, and it fits exactly the car.
Probably handier than mine.
What I can see, I think we're pretty much gonna be right on that sidewalk line now.
Okay. So
I don't
if,
think we're
if
coming-
anymore, it'd just be like slightly not a
It
significant
looks like
amount.
it's not a significant amount, it might be a foot or so, but it's not gonna be too bad, because I'm just looking at what's left on this drawing. It looks like that concrete is, I mean, you still got a fair amount of concrete.
Mhm. Right now, I would say we probably have about 10 foot from the sidewalk to our door.
So you're gonna have. Yeah, I bet you still have about 10 feet there.
Okay.
That's all I have.
Okay.
I don't think it's gonna be that drastic, it looks like the concrete sidewalk, is pretty close to the backside of where we're at now.
So even though we actually do a good sidewalk, it's still gonna be ripped out.
What's gonna
New
happen,
one.
what's gonna happen is, the biggest change will be what you see here, this green space will now be.
So that little pit, that little bit of our yard that's between the sidewalk and the road is gonna be gone, that's about it, right?
It looks like.
Because that I really don't care about, it's not like I do anything with that.
If back
It'll
sidewalks,
be,
be back
it'll be
sidewalks.
on, it'll be on street park.
Okay, so that's gonna be just the biggest thing, is that little piece of our yard is on your yard. Okay, that I don't care about, so less going for me then. Take it. Thank you.
Okay, don't feel ganged up on, but I think the four of us agree with the same thing.
I'm sure.
First of all, before we complain about anything, we really all do want this. So let's start there, that we are happy about it. But you all live right across the street from the
So,
park.
I'm here,
Mhm.
there's Maria, and if I stop it,
So
and
actually, it might be helpful.
okay. So,
There you are.
there we are, they're right here. So, okay, that's an old picture, that's
That's
When there
Sharon
was
Struck.
one
Yeah.
Yeah, that's 2015. Okay, so, right now you park out front. Now all the parking's gonna be on the south side.
Right, and the
What other options do you have? And give me your address, just to make sure. So you're, so you're 709, and there's, you're 713?
717.
717, so you're probably.
The 713 also parks out front.
Yeah. So parked out front right now.
Any reason why we couldn't do some kind of parking on the backside?
We can't. We have parking in the back. The issue that we're having is all along there, when it is, if we have more than one or two vehicles, the park in the summer, but mostly on football days, that area is a problem now. Now with the problem with the parking being on the north side, there's no place to park out front. But when you move the parking to the south side, it's funny, I'm the one talking about parking. Anyway, when you move the parking to the south side, there's not going to be any front parking for residents. And I know that's public parking, but it will be filled up with park people. It is now, is what we're saying. So,
I don't know if there is a feud between the football field and the Parks Department, but football field's down here, y'all need to know this part. It's down here. When they have a football game, the Parks Department shuts this road off right here and closes those bathrooms. So now all the people who could park here are now parking along here and here. And now we have a new discount warehouse that's opened up here. So Friday, Saturday, Sunday, this is all filled up with. They're around the side.
yeah, it's everywhere.
In the field, everywhere. So,
I guess our question is at what point do the homeowners get what they need before the visitors take what they want? We have to live there.
and if it's the Parks Department that we need to be in contact with, I guess our thing is, you might be in a better position to do that than we are.
we might have a little more clout than.
Yeah.
See, in the past, this little gravel area here, I know, this little gravel area here,
Was parking.
yeah, so I don't, it was, I'm sure never intended to be parking, but they literally line up in here, bumper to bumper.
Both sides
You
of the
will see
gravel.
them on the grass, on this side near the street, you will see them parked on the grass up here towards the equipment. That's how packed that area gets. So now, if you're putting parking on that side of the street, man, they're gonna gobble that up so fast. Where we're at, we have, the only parking we have is, whoops, I did it, sorry. So sorry, okay, so even better. So,
It was intentional.
that's all we have for off-street parking. That's it, there's no other way to go.
Barely a car wide.
Yeah.
You're 77. Do you have any ability to put parking back here?
We have a garage back there and our backyard.
Well,
and then-
Yeah, I'm just asking.
So, and behind our garage, we have a enclosed trailer, and it's parked there, so that we can keep that off the street at least. So, but we shouldn't have to turn our lives completely
That's
upside
what I
down
was just gonna say, is that. it
to,
isn't
so
like
that
we
Joe
don't-
Schmo can get Joe Junior off to football practice.
Yeah, and I mean, I guess, I'll be honest, I don't have anything to do with the park or the football, Tigers. It wasn't our intent to put parking for them, wasn't the intent.
Right, we get
Just,
that.
just from making everything work, we couldn't have the parking on the north side. I mean, in order to do that, we would have to
Can
flip
you
it.
drag this way?
Yeah, I know.
This is your center line of the road, right?
Ah, you did it.
Which
I
one?
got it on the wrong button. Um, So as you come this way, and it's hard to tell, but if you look at it, you see how this starts to shift here?
Yeah,
There's a
so the center
shift.
line's already been shifted for the
Well,
road, so.
So this all starts to shift north, so if we switch everything to the north and you get down.
I'm not worried about shifting
Why
all
are
the
we
parking
switching
to the
everything?
north.
Yeah.
When you get down to here, this line carries all the way through, right?
This one does.
Yes, this one carries all the way through. That's where you're parking on the north side now. I can't move, I can't shift that north. There's no right of way. So if we come through here, where we're at on the north side, that's it. That's all the right of way. I can't shift it north.
Yeah, but this north
So I
side
could
parking
shift,
doesn't,
I could shift everything south.
this north side parking doesn't start until here. This is all south side parking.
And it's
all the
always
way
been
back.
that way.
Yes.
So there's no parking shift from there. You're
What
shifting
we're
our
saying is,
parking.
why does it have to be south side all the way through?
It's been north and
Is
south
the
forever.
Question, I guess.
So that works for our lives upside down from where we're parking and fighting for space for something I don't feel like we should be having to do. And that's all south side parking until you get down to where the football field starts, the block before. And your shift is here, going to the south.
Yeah, but this north line stays the same all the way through. And if I'm shifting,
up here.
yeah, if I'm coming along here, then if I'm doing north side parking somewhere down here, then I have
Well,
to
this
shift
is
everything
south
to the
side
north.
here.
Yeah, I know, that means I have to move that north line.
It already is. Because there's side parking, it starts right there. So there's nothing to shift. You're shifting it by moving it to the south.
Well, maybe you need to explain.
The
it.
same, look. Do you see how wide the road is? That's north side parking.
Your center line's clear over
Yeah,
here.
here's the not parking side. So now what you're doing is you're turning us all upside down for something that's already been.
Hey, and change subject for just a second. Oh, you can help. Okay, so this is our house. Those are my shrubs that literally sit on the sidewalk.
Right beside the sidewalk.
I'm okay with losing them, I just want to know if I'm gonna lose them. You might, because they have the Will somebody
Form
knock
up-
on my door and
form
say
up the
something to me
sidewalk,
before they
you know.
disappear?
They'll be forming up that far underneath the edge of it.
Yeah, they don't need about
These are
this.
mine.
That road is really wide through there.
These two.
Oh,
We're gonna lose
not.
Um,
The base almost far enough back.
I'll just trim a little.
Yeah, but see, if you trim them any further, you just get branch.
That's all right.
Yeah, we
Get away with ours.
Well,
It's close.
yeah.
It's close. My guess is there's
Which
probably
one of us?
roots good and under the sidewalks anyway.
What's your last name?
Archer.
Yeah, but is it in the courthouse under Arthur, or is it still under Kaiser?
No, it's under Archer.
Whose cars are
So,
this?
I don't know. Who knows on the picture? This was 2015.
One is Lisa's daughter right there.
Oh, that's Lisa's old car. And that was, what's her name's boyfriend?
Oh, from down at,
Megan?
So all the sidewalk, that sidewalk line closest to our house stays the same. The
Right.
sidewalk comes out further to the street.
Correct, correct. Because the back of the side was kind of right away,
Now,
basically.
this is the new sidewalk that was put in 5 years ago.
Mhm.
So is this gonna stay this wide all the way through, or is that gonna be wider?
Must be white.
It's gonna be wider.
Where are we? This is the north side. North side gets 5, and the south side
so
gets.
they're switching the bike path over to the other,
Sandy wrong.
So the grass.
They'll be the same, so whichever one.
Yeah, south side is.
which side's the bike path gonna be on, north or south? South?
Yeah, south is 10, north is
Okay.
5.
So that's
Unless
gonna
it's
go-
up against the curb in some spots, and that'll be 6 feet wide.
and that's gonna go right through the park too?
It's gonna come down, right down the front
That'll
of
be
their
that
fence.
grassy area in front of, yeah.
Yeah, come right down the front of their fence.
And actually,
That'll be
at
interesting.
some point, it,
Their fence is right on that.
Get too close.
Well, there is right now.
Yeah.
There's no place for people with ride over there all the time.
Be nice to have a sidewalk all the way down through there. though.
Yes, it will.
Yeah, it will.
Like I said, the project is wonderful.
Yeah, we like it too.
Yeah, it's just,
Until this meeting, we didn't even know we were on the street out there.
Yeah,
it's under 17.
now I get a whole view of what Isabel cleans once a week or so.
yes, Isabella's always over there in the summer in the swamp.
With that swamp, comes out with bags of trash, throws it in the
She
trash.
did it the first time and I got how to
Good.
fit. I
It
said,
wouldn't be Kaiser, would it?
Oh, yeah, it
Yes.
could be.
Okay.
Yes, it
you
is.
need gloves, kid, don't go grabbing stuff out of that swamp. You're ready to
They've got it over there.
Well, you know, it's pretty good.
Yeah. No, basically, they start parking on the side of the street about right here.
And it's right here, see apartments.
Okay, here.
Because Masterson has their own,
Yeah, and then there's all the empty, who owns this empty space?
I don't know, I thought,
I thought Habitat. owned it.
Habitat for Humanity bought it.
So,
Football days, they all park there.
It's not shown to be removed on there. I'd
The
say
shrubs are?
the Shrubs are gonna stay unless they get damaged too much. And we purchased all of this property,
We being the city?
well, redevelopment commission, this is gonna be a senior housing.
Needs to be parking.
You're not listening?
The seniors just got a whole place out at Walmart.
Well, we talked about this property here, about doing something
we're
about
gonna do something about
So
the
that
flood.
it's gonna be a senior what?
Yeah,
senior housing,
and that's where,
Senior, like, low income housing or senior,
affordable housing.
so like retired typers?
Yes.
Type.
so when we get old, we won't have far to move.
Yay!
When is that supposed to take place?
I think they're hoping to start construction later this year.
So that section you're just pointing at is what was supposed to be the parking for Goodman Field.
That's what we had thought at the time, maybe it wasn't supposed to be, but that's what someone said at the time.
I think the parking we had looked at was here, potentially somewhere in here.
And that area is the old baseball field that people still use.
Well, we had talked about closing this off, creating parking in here. But we might be able to take some of that.
And you know what's gonna happen when we do that right here? It's all gonna be used right here.
Uh-huh.
Yep.
From the warehouse place.
Do they park
been
Yeah.
beautiful. They have to have police presence every weekend now. It's crazy over there.
Yeah,
But
fire
you-
trucks down there, ambulances down there. all
Fire
kinds of
department
stuff.
limit for
You have to stay.
But you could, if the city would purchase, if the
Whoa, nothing. That's the answer to
It's
that question.
it's a discount warehouse, that place.
You never
You can
know.
go in there, Fridays is $5, Saturdays is $3, and Sundays is $1.
it's the only place in town you could buy a hammer, a drill, a refrigerator, and a box of tampons in 5 minutes.
And they'll be in with, like within
Telling
a foot of each other.
And for
You gotta
$5.
dig for 'em. Yes.
It's messy. But those houses across the street from the Dollar General, Sloansville,
Zertons.
if the city would purchase those
And make parking, there you
and
go.
make parking. that would be-
We'll just fix it all up for you.
Yeah, yeah,
You
you
should
got
call
all
us
the
months
answers.
ago.
But honestly, those, 4 houses ruin
Those 4 houses.
the entire neighborhood.
Owner occupied. I have
Are
actually.
you kidding? I thought they all belonged to Zartman.
Who owns one of those?
Oh, stop.
That one, the rent, that one, this I think is owner occupied.
It's probably that one that burned.
That is a one that burned.
Shouldn't have done McDonald's. I'm telling you.
Back for a
Our
rental
street has a
question.
real problem with McDonald's.
No, I have looked at this whole area, I looked at all of it, I looked
It's
at
horrible.
Red Run, I looked at that thing too. Nothing more to buy that and tear it down.
Well, that at least serves a purpose, but the fact that the city never forces them to clean that up, it's a shit show over there all the time. It is nasty, the police are there all the time, nothing's ever cleaned up, there's a 24-hour-a-day garage sale that goes on from April until November.
Hey, now, don't knock the garage sale. You can find some good stuff at that garage sale.
Don't you dare knock down there, Trish. Spray cookies and that stuff. But yeah, we think this project's amazing and we love the way the other end of the
Yes,
street looks.
absolutely.
But you're putting all this money into this and you're leaving that crap.
Well, it's. I think the camera's actually still on.
Hang on a minute.
Shut that thing off.
Let me not say anything incriminating on the camera.
Okay,
And I really don't want to lose the Dollar General. Would be nicer if the area was nicer, or the store looked nicer.
Those have